They say tragedy brings people together, that calamity unites a community. But on Maplewood Lane, when flames clawed at the sky and sirens shattered the morning calm, unity was nowhere to be found. The first figure to arrive was Karen Donaldson, the HOA president with the confidence of a self-appointed monarch and a set of razor-sharp garden shears in hand. As the fire engine skidded to a stop and firefighters leapt into action to save the Miller family's home, Karen emerged from her stately colonial house like a suburban general, arms flailing and voice screeching about unauthorized parking and ruined flowerbeds. Then, in a scene destined to be retold for years, she marched straight to the bright yellow fire hose, shrieked something about damaged tulips, and sliced it clean through. Water erupted into the air. Firefighters cursed, scrambled, and in seconds, the front half of the Miller house succumbed to a shower of embers and screams. It wasn't just the fire scorching the street that day, it was the collective horror of neighbors witnessing a self-entitled ruler value flowers over human life. Earlier, the cul-de-sac had been its usual sleepy self. Birds trilled, sprinklers hummed, and the faint aroma of over-toasted bagels drifted from someone's kitchen. Raj Patel tinkered with his drone in the garage. Sasha practiced a TikTok dance. Dale, the grizzled Vietnam vet, muttered disapproval at a squirrel that dared cross his yard. Everything was ordinary until Linda's voice rang out from her porch, phone clutched to her chest, eyes wide with alarm, smoke, thick and black, spiraling from number 17. Within moments, the neighbors flooded the street, fire trucks roaring around the corner. The Millers didn't answer their door. Firefighters moved like a well-oiled machine. One hooked the hose to the hydrant, another crashed through the front door, a third corralled the growing crowd. It would have been over quickly, if not for her. Karen Donaldson wasn't merely HOA president, she was Maplewood Lane's self-declared aesthetic enforcer. A former middle school principal turned full-time control zealot, she worshipped order, appearances, and the sacred rose garden pathway snaking through the neighborhood like a velvet carpet. So when she spotted the fire truck tires pressing on what she considered the crown jewel of Maplewood, concern for the Millers or respect for the firefighters did not cross her mind. Instead, blinding, righteous fury erupted. "What in the world do you think you're doing?" she screeched, striding past the barricade tape. A firefighter paused, confused. Karen's nostrils flared, eyes wild. "You're trampling HOA-approved landscaping. You can't park here. This is a protected path." "Ma'am, there's a fire. We're trying to save lives," the firefighter said, stunned but professional. Karen would hear none of it. She launched into an impassioned tirade, bylaws, landscaping funds, and how she had personally earned a regional award for community beautification. Clipboard raised like a battle standard, she scanned the hose stretched across her beloved tiles. "Absolutely not," she bellowed. Then she vanished into her garage and returned with heavy-duty garden shears, the kind reserved for cutting stubborn shrubs down to size. With the ferocity of someone avenging 1,000 dandelions, she knelt, and before anyone could intervene, snipped the hose in half. A fountain of water erupted skyward. The nearest firefighter slipped, cursed, and tumbled. The rest scrambled to seal the breach, but precious seconds were lost, and inside the fire raged unchecked. Windows exploded. Front beams collapsed. Flames swallowed the porch. A collective gasp rose from the crowd as the Miller family cat launched from the second-story window. One firefighter dove to catch it midair. Another yelled for backup. Chaos reigned. And amidst it all, Karen stood with crossed arms, smirking as if she'd restored order. By the time the flames were extinguished, the Millers had lost nearly everything. Smoke-stained bedrooms, a destroyed kitchen, and their son's high school trophies melted to nothing. Silence hung heavy over the neighborhood, disbelief etched on every face. Karen offered no apology, only a lecture on proper vehicle placement in community spaces. "They could have used the main road," she muttered. "I warned them, but no one listens." Firefighters didn't argue, they were too stunned. The fire chief glared at her, a mix of horror and pity. "You endangered lives. People could have died." Karen barely blinked, already inspecting her begonias. By evening, the story hit local news. Karen Midsnip Donaldson became an overnight sensation, footage airing immediately after a segment on a stolen inflatable gorilla. Internet commenters dubbed her Hose Hacker Karen. Reddit threads erupted. The HOA issued a sterile statement. The association regrets the events of today and is reviewing safety protocols. No condemnation. No apology. No accountability, because Karen was the HOA. Neighbors whispered behind closed doors. Raj considered delving into the bylaws. Sasha began drafting a video. Dale cleaned his shotgun, mumbling about absurdities not even seen in '68. As the sun set over Maplewood Lane, casting a golden hue over the scorched Miller home, a shift rippled through the air. Smoke and ash weren't the only things lingering. So was resolve. Karen had gone too far, and the residents weren't going to wait for justice, they were about to deliver it themselves. The next morning was quieter than usual. Smoke still clung to leaves, mailboxes, backpacks, and the scorched shell of the Miller home. Yellow caution tape fluttered like grim decorations. Blackened wood and melted siding littered the front yard, and a deflated basketball lay abandoned at the curb. Silence was thick, accusatory, and overdue. The Millers stood by the driveway, faces blank with exhaustion. Mrs. Miller clutched insurance documents tremblingly, while Mr. Miller reassured their son that some comics might survive the garage. A hotel had been their bed for the night, or at least they had tried. Every sudden noise triggered a fresh round of tears from the youngest. The fire may have been out, but its terror lingered. A local news van parked at the edge of the cul-de-sac, antenna raised. Another van arrived, not for reporting, but from a restoration company. And then Karen Donaldson appeared, pristine in a beige pantsuit and designer sunglasses, clipboard in hand. Neighbors stiffened. She approached the Millers with all the subtlety of a tax auditor at a wedding. "I hope you filed a damage report," Karen said, tone sharp. "For both your home and the community landscaping. Those rose tiles took years." Mrs. Miller blinked, stunned. "I'm sorry, what?" Karen ignored her, scanning the yard. Fire trucks left tire marks on the path. "I'm compiling violations. Your house melted onto HOA property, debris encroachment." Mr. Miller stepped forward. "Our home burned down. We regret it terribly." Karen's voice was icy, like someone offering thoughts and prayers before a lawsuit. "Rules are rules." Neighbors, previously silent, began moving forward. Dale, arms folded, Linda, phone out pretending to check the weather, actually recording, Raj, squinting behind glasses, already mentally building a digital dossier. Karen sensed the tension but remained unmoved. Untouchable for years, she could not fathom challenge. By noon, 5 residents had gathered at Raj's house under the guise of a neighborhood watch meeting. They didn't call it what it was yet, but everyone knew exactly why. Exactly why they were there. Operation Karma didn't have a name yet, but the mission was crystal clear. I mean, she literally cut a fire hose. "Who does that?" Sasha exclaimed, pacing the length of Raj's living room. "She's unhinged." Benny leaned back, flipping open a thick manila folder. "And I think I can prove she's criminally negligent." "This," he said, slapping it onto the coffee table. "A copy of the state fire code." Raj leaned over, eyebrows raised. "Wait, didn't she face charges?" Linda shook her head. "Misdemeanor at best." She claimed she didn't realize it was an active hose, thought it was just decorative. Her brother, Councilman Donaldson, pulled some strings. "She walked. She cut a hose." Dale growled. Raj was already typing furiously on his laptop. "If we can't get her legally, maybe there's another way. HOA violations, finances, backdoor approvals. She leaves a trail." "Exactly," Sasha added, smirking. "Like a raccoon in a Prada tracksuit." Everyone laughed, a first since the fire. It felt good. Raj pulled up the HOA website. Password protected. He grinned. "I'll be in by morning." Meanwhile, Karen held her own HOA emergency meeting on her front porch. A folding table, a few clipboards, and a makeshift sign reading Emergency Landscaping Review set the stage. She lectured 3 board members, each wearing expressions that begged for an escape route. Karen laid out new rules: no emergency vehicles on decorative pathways, a review of fire truck access, and fines for negligent combustion. The board nodded, weakly. Trust in Karen had been frayed since the fire. Martha even suggested a gift basket for the Millers. Karen recoiled. "We can't reward recklessness," she snapped. "That's how order is lost." But order was already gone. That night, Sasha uploaded the hose-cutting video to her growing social media following. Raw, unedited, just the footage. Within hours, it exploded across platforms. Comments ranged from disbelief to fury to memes. Karen photoshopped as a villain in action movies, cutting hoses on the Titanic, chasing firefighters in Grand Theft Auto. By morning, the video had reached 1 million views. The HOA inbox erupted. Karen retaliated with 23 new violations. Linda's mailbox too whimsical, Raj's drone invading community airspace, Benny penalized for an unauthorized birdbath, Dale cited for aggressive lawn gnomes. But the residents weren't backing down, they were plotting. Benny combed fire regulations. Linda sifted through 5 years of HOA minutes. Sasha crafted a narrative. Raj cracked the HOA website and discovered a suspicious invoice, $5,000 allocated to water features under Karen Donaldson's name and address. Ladies and gentlemen, Raj said, swiveling the laptop. She built a koi pond with HOA funds.
Dale snorted.
She's going to regret cutting only a hose. A new fire had ignited on Maplewood Lane, not of smoke, but quiet rebellion. One that simmered behind smiles, garden fences, whispered in driveways, hatched during bake sales. The neighborhood had reached its tipping point. Karen, clueless, remained oblivious. It started small, a single plastic pink flamingo in the middle of her perfectly trimmed lawn.
Then another.
By the week's end, 12 flamingos stood in a semicircle around her koi pond, as if staging a tiny intervention. Karen erupted. By 6:45 a.m., she stormed onto her lawn, trash bag in hand, yanking up flamingos while muttering about neighborhood hooligans and property values. Yet, each morning, new ones appeared, some with sunglasses, one painted like a fire truck. The message was unmistakable: the neighborhood was done playing nice. Inside Raj's garage, Operation Karma was in full swing. A whiteboard mapped timelines, offenses, and strategy. Sasha pinned screenshots from viral video comments. Benny had donuts. Dale, black coffee in hand, observed like a seasoned general. Raj clicked through HOA spending reports, water feature maintenance, emergency floor replacement, and an absurd $2,000 listed as community harmony consulting. All trails led to Karen's koi pond obsession. I cross-checked invoices with our landscaper, Raj explained. Turns out, Karen double-charged the HOA, one bill from the landscaper, another from a shell company she owned.
A shell company? Linda leaned forward.
Donaldson Eco Aesthetics. Literally run out of her garage. The same garage where she keeps the shears, Dale snorted. Exactly, Sasha said, clapping.
Benny grinned.
Fraud, misuse of funds, probable blackmail, and felony-level flamingo intolerance. We need to go bigger.
This is war.
Pranks escalated, carefully calculated, satirical sabotage. Benny borrowed a retired fire hydrant from old firefighter contacts and placed it in front of Karen's house with a plaque, in loving memory of common sense. Sasha orchestrated a flash mob of teens performing a fire-themed dance with hose props and siren effects. Linda crafted a fake newsletter: Karen wins National Hose Cutting Championship, Maplewood's fire hazard queen expands empire. Karen lost her mind. She appeared at HOA meetings in military-style attire, shoulder pads, boots clacking like thunder. Proposed a curfew for a neighborhood of retirees, toddlers, and hobbyist bird watchers. Banned unapproved decorations, lawn gnomes, garden flags, wind chimes. She outlawed all fire-themed decor, including a boy's birthday cake shaped like a fire truck. The child cried. Karen didn't care, but her power slipped. At the next HOA meeting, the turnout was unprecedented. Usually 6 people and stale cookies. This time, standing room only. Karen opened with a smug smile, but the room went icy when Raj spoke. Before we begin, he said, clicking a remote, I'd like to present some findings. Slide after slide detailed evidence: altered budgets, unauthorized purchases, personal enrichment, shell company invoices leading straight to her koi pond, and extravagant upgrades. Karen tried to interrupt. This is slander.
Benny stood.
It's public record. Karen turned to the board. You can't let this circus continue. I'm the elected president. I uphold community standards. Martha, calm and firm, introduced a vote of no confidence. Tension thickened like fog. Hands raised. The count was razor close. Karen survived by a single vote. 1. She strutted out, clipboard aloft, chin higher. But cracks had appeared. The vote didn't save her, it exposed her. Untouchable no more, just temporarily standing. That weekend Dale hosted a block party. Karen issued cease and desist orders to every household: unauthorized gathering, no permit, noise pollution. Nobody listened. Dale, red apron reading grill sergeant, fired up 3 barbecues. Kids ran wild. Music blasted. Sasha livestreamed, captioning each themed dish: charred chicken of justice, fire hose fries, scorched ribs of retribution. Karen hovered at the edge of the party, arms crossed, a scowl carved into her face. She dialed the police. When the officers arrived, they took one look around and promptly helped themselves to hot dogs. Karen complained, and they shrugged. The block party wasn't breaking any city laws. They even paused to take a selfie with Sasha. As twilight descended, fairy lights twinkling across the driveways, Benny revealed his piece de resistance: a 12-foot inflatable fire truck planted squarely in the center of the festivities. Complete with a slide, siren. sounds blasting from built-in speakers, and a banner that read, "Always be prepared." Karen's scream could probably be heard in the next county. The next morning, every home received a fresh batch of HOA citations, each more absurd than the last. Lawn too cheerful, excessive festivity, unauthorized cornhole tournament. Karen was losing it, scattering violations like confetti at a mournful parade. But her opponents weren't done. Raj's AI bot, fueled by 3 sleepless nights and gallons of energy drinks, now auto-generated formal appeals for every single citation. Using language lifted from HLA bylaws, case law, and Karen's own prior rulings, it overwhelmed the HOA system. Karen had to read each one manually. By week's end, she was drowning in the bureaucratic chaos of her own creation. Linda leaked a document showing Karen's attempt to raise HOA dues for security upgrades, including surveillance cameras pointed directly at Dale's house, Sasha's yard, and Benny's sidewalk. The final straw, a fire inspection notice taped to Karen's door. Anonymous tip, it claimed, her koi pond waterfall wiring was not up to code, risk of electrical fire. Mandatory shutoff until reviewed. Karen stood before her darkened pond, koi barely visible in the still water, as her carefully curated world unraveled. Then came the fundraiser. Sasha posted a single plea, "Let's honor first responders, and remind Karen what a real fire truck looks like." Goal, $10,000. In under 72 hours, contributions hit $200,000. But they weren't buying a fire truck, they were preparing a delivery the likes of which could never be returned. On a bright Saturday morning, a flatbed the size of a small apartment rolled into Maplewood Lane, hazard lights flashing, accompanied by a small police escort just in case someone tried to intervene. Neighbors spilled from their homes, mugs and phones in hand, squinting at the massive tarp-covered cargo being hoisted by crane. Karen, sensing chaos beyond her control, bolted from her house in her signature beige pantsuit, clipboard trembling in one hand like a nervous squirrel. She began shouting before the truck even stopped.
What is this? Who authorized it?
This isn't HOA approved. You can't bring in industrial vehicles. You're violating at least 9 ordinances. The driver hopped down, smirking, handing a thick envelope to Benny, who signed with theatrical flair. Karen lunged for it, but Dale intercepted with a casual sidestep and a firm, "Back off, General Mayhem." Laughter rippled through the crowd. When the tarp was finally pulled back, the neighborhood gasped, cheered, and immediately began filming. On the flatbed stood a 30-foot inflatable fire truck, complete with spinning siren lights, a functioning kid slide, and a sound system blasting firetruck funk every hour. It was the sort of centerpiece you might expect at a safety fair or theme park, but here it was, parked squarely in front of Karen's house. Bold red letters proclaimed, "Maplewood Lane remembers." Karen's jaw hung open like a rusty hinge. "You can't do this. This is illegal,"
she screamed. Benny smiled. "Actually, we can.
Community property. Temporary recreational installation. Permits filed last week." Raj added, barely hiding his glee, "We even invited the local fire department to host safety demos every Saturday." They're thrilled. Karen spun in circles, pointing wildly, demanding allies. No one moved. Even her usual HOA sycophants had melted into the hedges. Martha, the sole board member with a hint of backbone, sipped iced tea and offered a small, serene wave. By noon, the inflatable fire truck was fully operational. Children climbed the ladder and slid down in plastic firefighter hats. Sasha livestreamed it all, interviewing parents, kids, and a bewildered golden retriever. Dale cranked up a stereo, blasting classics like "Burning Down the House" and "We Didn't Start the Fire." Linda baked fire extinguisher-shaped cupcakes. Someone handed out hose-shaped licorice.
Karen called the police, again.
Same officers arrived, taking in the spectacle, laughing quietly at the legal paperwork taped to the inflatable side. "Everything checks out," one said, suppressing a grin. "But it's harassment."
Karen shrieked. "Targeted.
Attack on my leadership." The officer scratched his chin. "Ma'am, you literally cut a fire hose. This is just the community expressing itself." The phrase "expressing itself" became a running joke overnight. That evening, after the crowd dispersed and the inflatable stood tall under solar-powered lights, Karen sat on her porch, lukewarm tea in hand, staring blankly at the massive firetruck. Her koi pond remained dry. Roses wilted. The only sound, the occasional hiss of escaping air. But Karen wasn't done.
No, she was pivoting.
The next morning, every mailbox overflowed with HOA citations: unapproved inflatable structure, unauthorized noise, reckless use of slides. Raj received 3 violations: reckless drone operation, flagrant Wi-Fi interference, and sarcasm in a community setting. Linda fined for aggressive cinnamon use in public. Sasha cited for unsanctioned digital influence. Karen's spiral was visible to all, but her retaliation no longer held sway. Raj's AI now auto-appealed the citations and filed formal complaints with the city zoning board. Dale consulted a lawyer friend who loved dismantling overreaching HOA policies. Sasha's latest video, Karen vs. the Fire Truck, Dawn of Entitlement, hit 4.2 million views and was featured on a daytime talk show. Then came the councilman, Karen's brother, Douglas Donaldson, with his waxy smile and vague job description, arrived for damage control. He held a press conference in front of the inflatable, preaching unity and respect. Raj hacked his speeches, remixing him saying, "I can cover up a few hose incidents over Disco Inferno," uploading it as Burn Baby Burn. It went viral overnight. The councilman vanished within 24 hours. Karen's last card, a lawsuit. She claimed the fire truck, videos, memes, cupcakes, all orchestrated defamation. Threats targeted Sasha, Raj, Dale, Benny, Linda, the HOA board, the inflatable company, the fire department, even the golden retriever. But the notice never made it past the city attorney's inbox. Dismissed, denied, quietly laughed out of existence. The city launched its own investigation into Karen for misuse of HOA funds, intimidation, and obstruction during emergency response. And just when dust seemed to settle, and the inflatable fire truck had become a weekend fixture, a strange package arrived at Karen's door. The package was hand-delivered by a man wearing a firefighter's jacket. No words, no fanfare, just a ring of the bell, a single nod, and he walked away. Karen opened the box and froze. Inside rested a high-resolution framed photograph of the Miller house engulfed in flames. In the foreground, the severed hose, a firefighter silhouetted against smoke, embers glowing like scattered fireflies. A small brass plaque read, "To the woman who taught us what not to do." Beneath the frame lay a velvet-lined case, containing a single garden shear. Its blade had been sawed clean in half. At the bottom of the box, an official HOA document. Her removal notice. Effective immediately, Karen Donaldson was no longer HOA president. No longer on the board. No longer even a voting member. Her clipboard slipped from her hands, and for the first time in years, Maplewood Lane breathed again. The silence that followed was louder than any siren. For the first time in memory. There were no citations taped to mailboxes, no angry notes about improperly coiled hoses or wind chimes exceeding decibel limits. Her house, once the epicenter of HOA tyranny, stood silent, blinds drawn, as if ashamed of its former occupant. Neighbors walked past with a new swagger, no longer glancing over shoulders for someone lurking with a clipboard. Maplewood Lane was free, and it showed. The Miller family returned to their rebuilt home 3 weeks later. It wasn't the same, nothing could replace what was lost, but neighbors ensured they came back surrounded by care. The house was repainted, refurnished, and restocked with the help of volunteers. Raj coordinated furniture deliveries. Sasha's followers donated enough groceries for 6 months. Dale and Benny built a fireproof shed just in case. Linda filled the kitchen with baked goods, a handwritten note tucked inside, "Home is people, not drywall." A small, informal ceremony took place in the park at the end of the lane. No speeches, just laughter, neighbors sharing stories of past run-ins with Karen. A man confessed he'd once been penalized for having a mailbox too cheerful. Another admitted Karen made him repaint shutters 3 times to match the community palette. Toward the end, Sasha unveiled the newest addition. Draped in red cloth on a stone pedestal in front of the playground stood a life-size bronze firefighter statue, hose in one hand, cat in the other. The plaque read, "In honor of those who protect, serve, and never let a garden shear get in their way." Children dubbed him Sir Hoses-a-Lot. He quickly became Maplewood Lane's unofficial guardian. Every morning, kids high-fived him on their way to school. Meanwhile, Karen remained indoors for a week, blinds shut, peeking out occasionally like a wary raccoon.
Rumors swirled. Revenge? Memoir?
But the first sign of action was a for sale sign on her lawn. Without a word, she packed her koi into a plastic tub and left quietly. No celebration, just relief. Karma had spoken, but it had a long memory. 3 months later, Sasha received a blurry video from a friend in another HOA-controlled neighborhood. Karen had moved into a new community. At first, she laid low, but by week 2, she was already leaving passive-aggressive notes about trash bins and improving community standards. The clip showed Karen yelling at a teenager for using a sparkler on the 4th of July. Camera panned to her new neighbors, a retired fire chief next door, a group home for off-duty paramedics across the street. Within days, a red lawn chair appeared on her driveway labeled Firewatch Post. A garden flag rose nearby, we're always on call. A local bakery delivered a welcome basket of hose dash, axe dash, and hydrant-shaped cookies. The neighborhood had been warned. Back on Maplewood Lane, peace wasn't just the absence of Karen, it was the presence of something new. Neighbors who once waved now gathered for potlucks, trivia nights, and monthly movie nights projected onto Benny's garage. The HOA was reorganized. Transparency, accountability, and a firm rule: never elect anyone with a personal vendetta. Raj expanded his AI into a community management system, tracking budgets, scheduling maintenance, and flagging suspicious charges like koi food under community enhancement. Linda launched a local blog recounting suburban survival stories, including the day the hose cried. Sasha's videos continued growing, eventually securing a sponsorship from a home security company, but she refused to promote garden shears. Then came the final delivery. A small unmarked box arrived at Karen's former address, now home to a kindly older couple who regularly handed out lemon bars. They gave it to Dale, unsure what to do. Inside, wrapped in red tissue paper, lay a tiny gold-plated hose nozzle, cleanly cut. Accompanying it was a note, perfectly scripted, for the ones who kept the fire going. Just not the one in the house. No signature, no return address, just closure. The gift found a home in the community hall, displayed beneath a photo collage: the fire, fundraiser, inflatable, and Sir Hoses a lot standing tall. It became a symbol, not of revenge, but of what Maplewood Lane had become: accountability, laughter amidst absurdity, unity in chaos, resilience in cupcakes, flamingos, and inflatable engines of justice. Karen had ruled with fear and citations. Maplewood Lane chose humor and fireproof friendship. As new families moved in and the seasons changed, the legend endured. Whenever someone asked about the golden nozzle, a neighbor would lean in, smile, and begin, "Let me tell you about the time our HOA president cut a fire hose, and got exactly what she deserved." HOA Karen cut the fire hose, the day everything changed for the neighborhood.